Amanda the Adventurer 2 came out and it's really good, but this series has always been very deep and a little confusing, so I thought a video like this would be very helpful to the fandom and new fans alike. The purpose of today's video is to go over what actually happened in Amanda the Adventurer 2, as well as the deeper story that it's telling us, and then go over general secrets that I found while playing the game. And full disclosure at the top, I won't be going over every single secret in this game because frankly, they haven't been found yet. These games are so dense that even the first game, there's still secrets we've yet to uncover. But for the purposes of today's video, I'll split up into chunks. The first chunk will tackle the actual direct plot of what's currently happening in Amanda the Adventurer 2. The second chunk will tackle what the actual story we're uncovering is, and then, like I mentioned, the third chunk will be dedicated to additional secrets I found along the way. As we go, I'll mention how certain secrets are found to hopefully give you a nudge in the right direction if you are ever lost or confused. That being said, yes, there will definitely be spoilers for this video, so if you want to play the game fully blind, I recommend you do that before watching. However, I won't be mentioning the answer to almost every puzzle. I think there's 1 or 2 puzzle answers I give, so if you're just interested in playing the game and you don't mind the story being spoiled for you, today's video is mostly safe. And I do highly recommend that you play this game, it's wonderful. But for now, slices, put on your aprons, and let's break down a game. Also, this video is going to be recorded in 2 separate days, and you'll denote that by the change of outfit. That's what happens when a game comes out on Tuesday, and it takes 2 days to really stream through most of it, and then I want the video out by Friday. So just be prepared for that. Starting with Amanda the Adventurer 2 opens directly after a secret ending from the first game, in which you answer yes to Amanda herself, and the TV starts freaking out. You destroy the TV, and this mysterious person in a hat shows up. Amanda the Adventurer 2 starts in that same attic with that same person. So by osmosis, we know that we're playing as Riley, and we're in the house of our dead Aunt Kate. This mysterious person introduces himself as a close friend of Kate, and offers to give us a safe place to rest. We wake up in her car, and she suggests that we go to the library Kate worked at and asks us what happened. So we relay the events of the first game. Speaking of, what happened in the first game? What's going on? We'll do a quick summary of Amanda the Adventurer 1, so if you do remember that game, feel free to skip this section, but I have a feeling that this video will be the first foray into the Amanda the Adventurer series for a lot of my audience, so I thought it would make the most sense to quickly go over what happens in the first game so you know what the active storyline is doing. After all, this game is a direct continuation. The first game opens with this letter. Dear Riley, if you're reading this, it means you won't see me again unless it's in the next life. I wish I could have told you everything. I don't know how much time I have, and there is still so much I have to do before I'm gone. This letter serves 2 purposes: to say goodbye and to bequeath to you my house in Kinsdale. This next part may be a mistake, and God's forgive me if it is. When you settle in, there's something in the attic I need to pass on to you. Look for a tape, but know that once you watch it, there's no turning back. Stay safe, my dear. With you always, Aunt Kate. Then the game begins, and we're in the attic of Kate's house. True to the letter, if you're gonna bite, I'm not playing. If you're gonna bite me, you're gonna get kicked off. True to the letter, there's a tape and a VHS-capable TV up there. Upon playing it, we see an odd show named Amanda the Adventurer. Makes sense. That's definitely aimed at kids, but it has some questionable morals. Now, there are multiple endings to this game and multiple versions of a playthrough, but since we know that the second game opens on a specific ending of the first game, I'll just go over that playthrough in the assumption that that's the canonical playthrough. And again, we'll go through the deeper story later, so I'm just going over the overarching plot of the game. We begin watching these tapes and interacting with the objects in the attic to essentially play along with the TV show, and we find that we can actually directly answer and talk to Amanda in certain segments. We learn more and more about this show, Amanda, and her companion Wooly, and we even learn from some secret tapes that kids have been going missing while watching the show. Eventually, we find the tape titled We Can Share, and on the beginning of it, Wooly is missing from the logo. Inside, it's just Amanda packing up to go, but she teaches us a lesson about sharing, and at the very end of it, she asks if she can share a secret with us. And if you say yes twice, Amanda says this.
I'm out there. Somewhere.
The TV then starts freaking out until we throw a brick at it. The sun comes up, and then we see the mysterious hat person. And then the second game starts from there. Back to the second game, after we tell her everything in the car, she notes that that sounded horrifying. When we get to the library, she lets us know that there's something out there, and it's drawn to the tapes. She wants us to see if we can get into Kate's office, and in the meantime, she'll keep watch outside. It's worth noting that this game is simultaneously more linear than the first game, but the time of the game is less linear. What I I mean to say, in the first game, there's just one stretch of time that if you do different things, you can get different outcomes. And each time you start up a new game, you have more knowledge already that you can use earlier on. Meanwhile, in the second game, from my playthroughs anyway, it definitely more so seems that there's one long stretch of time and one linear thing that we're doing, and at certain times of the game when it feels like it would be an ending or a game over, it's actually just a continuation. So while the plot of this game is a little bit easier to go over, the actual timeline of it seems to be harder to decode. Similar to the first game, but now in a library, we watch VHS tapes of episodes from Amanda the Adventurer, and we interact with our environment during the episode to affect that VHS tape to get different outcomes. Notably, for the first half of these Wooly is completely absent, and Amanda will make snide remarks if you mention him. And when he reappears, she expresses severe disdain that he's back. Eventually, we encounter the tape Let's Hunt for Treasure, in which we go on a treasure hunt with Amanda and Wooly. At the end, she's dissatisfied with the semi-destroyed plushie she finds and demands a treasure from the real world. And it's at this moment that this monster that appeared in some of the deaths of the first game appears behind the TV and is ready to accept the toy for Amanda. In this moment, you have three options: a rubber chicken, a stuffed bear, and this stuffed cow. All three of these are incorrect, and giving any of them to the monster will result in a death. This isn't a game over, or necessarily an ending. It's a continuation. After your death, it boots you to the main menu, to which if you hit continue, the game seems to start anew. But very quickly we realize that things are different, where in the first tape, Amanda herself specifically says, "Don't you want to try something new?" And upon selecting the other option, this train track puzzle appears in the background. If you solve that train track puzzle, we get a new tape. There's another way to solve this puzzle that we can't quite do yet, but putting in this new tape brings us to a completely new episode and sets us down a completely separate path. While we're on this path, the masked figure calls us over the walkie-talkie, letting us know that somebody burned down Kate's house. Eventually, we get to this storytime tape, in which Wooly tells us a story and we have to go activate pop-up books in the background to match what's going on. But very soon, the monster reappears. It's worth noting, and this might be nothing, but Wooly's eyes go fully black right before the monster shows up. Regardless, the really important thing to note here is that in that moment, Amanda begs the monster to stop and that we've helped before, asking the monster to give us a chance to help. If we do the puzzle according to Wooly's story, by the end of the tape, the monster will kill us. But if instead we tell the story of the pictures that Amanda drew and hung up on the wall behind her, a narrator tells a completely different story, which angers Wooly but ultimately saves our life because the monster does not attack us. However, doing this grants us a hammer, which we can use to break the glass in the main room, allowing us access once again to the Let's Hunt for Treasure tape and a Wooly plushie. Going back, the monster is gone, but at the end of the tape, it'll reappear to collect treasure. If we give it the Wooly plushie, the monster then runs to Kate's office and breaks down the door, unlocking the last segment of the game. It's worth noting that when you give the Wooly plushie to the monster, you get the achievement for giving Amanda a Wooly plushie. Now, it is up for debate, but this could either be referencing the fact that Amanda is the one who is ultimately receiving the treasure, or the monster is also Amanda, a fan theory that goes back since the first game, noting their similar heads. Well, similar is a stretch, but you know what I mean. In Kate's office, there's a broken up tape that shows some pretty graphic imagery, but if we repair that tape, we get a different episode outputted from the VCR. After playing that episode, the masked figure goes in to check on us and notes that the door was broken. She decides it's time to gather all the tapes we found and destroy them. This leads us to this big grand finale puzzle where we eventually get 3 keys to unlock Kate's desk, in which we find a tape recorder and a large red button. If you press the button, it opens a secret room and a tunnel underground behind the desk. We destroy one tape, and this weird spirit energy floats up from it. But in that moment, the monster barges in, attacks our masked figure, and tells us to run, which we do, going underground and escaping. This feels like the lead-in to Amanda the Adventurer 3 in a similar way that the masked figure did in the first game. But the game doesn't end there, as there is another secret ending beyond that you can get access to if you collect 4 secret tapes. So how do you get them? Just jutting in here, something I learned in the second day of streaming. The tapes actually always come in the same order. No matter what puzzle you solve in what order, you'll always get orange, teal, green, red. Figured it was worth pointing out. The orange tape involves the train ride, and instead of hitting Paris, Mexico City, London, and the exit, you have to hit those 3 places in order, and then the secondary exit. And to access that secondary exit, you need to be collecting train pieces throughout the entire game. Now, I'm gonna be super honest, this puzzle took me way longer than it should have, because I kind of forgot that it was Paris, Mexico City, London, and not Paris, London, Mexico City. Regardless, I've heard a lot of people had trouble with this, so this will be the main puzzle I'm spoiling. If you don't want to see it, close your eyes, but for a second, I'll show you the correct solution. This worked for me in 3, 2, 1, here. Spoiler, gone now. But I do think this is one of my favorite puzzles. It was very satisfying to do. Upon completion, you'll get the orange tape. The teal tape is much easier. All you have to do is complete the bad ending of the game and then hit continue instead of new game. It'll input you just before the bad ending, and the teal tape will be on the front desk in the library. To unlock the third tape, you have to find this poster with a barcode on it, rip it off, and scan that barcode at the book counter, in which you'll get a click here button and the next tape will show up. The last secret tape puzzle is actually my favorite. It's genius in the way that it's subtly hidden. I can't believe I didn't think to try it without chat telling me. But throughout the game, there's this toy cube that you use for several puzzles. The first puzzle uses these two sides, and the second puzzle uses these two sides. The final puzzle in the game uses all four, so I don't know why I never thought to do what the solution for the secret tape is. Essentially, take the first two puzzles and combine them. Do all four sides for both of those puzzles and you'll get the last secret tape. It's just a brilliant way to hide something in plain sight. After you watch all four secret tapes, the final tape will change. I think technically you only have to collect them, but I can't test that out because on the first playthrough I watched all of them. On the second playthrough, I already watched all of them on the save file. I don't know, but you at least have to collect them. You might have to watch them. When you watch the final tape in the alleyway, the possum now appears. This is important because during the final tape, the masked figure talks over the walkie-talkie. And when she does this time, the possum notices and tries to escape through the screen, screaming, "Joe, Joe, Joat, Joat." And then it like dies or whatever. The tape then ends, and behind you, a cassette tape has spawned on the ground. If you'll remember, in Kate's desk, there's a red button and a cassette player. Doing the rest of the final puzzle as normal, if you place that cassette tape into the cassette player, you instead of the bad ending, get the true ending. The tape starts playing and we hear Kate driving very feverishly on the day she died. She's crying and apologizing to Riley for getting her involved in this and saying that there's no way to defeat this company and she should just avoid it at all costs. She also says that Joanne is dead, and then you hear a car crash at the end. By the way, the voice acting in this tape is very well done. It is very uncomfortable to listen to this tape. It's rough. It's a rough listen. After that tape plays, the masked person comes into the office and apologizes to us, letting us know that she might be the reason Kate died. She takes off her mask, revealing that she is Joanne. Her brother, Jordan, disappeared while watching the show, and when trying to find answers, someone came to her and said that if she destroyed the tapes, her brother would come back. So she tracked down Kate, eventually finding her and demanding that she give her the tapes. But it was in that moment that the monster arrived. Her thinking is that it was trying to protect the tapes. She pushed Kate out of there and begged her to run, not wanting Kate to get killed because of her fault. So since Kate left while Joanne was alone with the monster, that's probably why she assumed Joanne died. But somehow Joanne survived. It's in that moment that we hear a howl, and it's very notable. And it's very notable that we've heard this howl before. When the Amanda-looking demon monster runs away from us and breaks into Kate's office, the reason it looks away from us is it also hears that howl earlier in the game. Joanne then gives us one of the tapes and tells us to run and that she'll be right behind us. The power goes out, and barely through the light of, I assume, a phone or flashlight, we see the face of a new monster. One that instead resembles Wooly. It sees us and we close the door before it can get to us. And then on the ladder ride down, we're forced to hear Joanne being ripped apart brutally by that monster. So that's the actual plot of events of what's happening in the game in the current time. Breaking news. Locals have reported a new cryptid in the woods, supposedly summoned by a ne'er-do-well. Footages have been obtained from several witnesses reporting a small piece of toast terrorizing them in the local forest. If you would like to get one of your own, they're available now on makeship.com/product/toast-plushie. The link is in the description for further information. This plushie will be available for the next 3 weeks via pre-order. Witnesses also allege that there are two faces of the plushie, one that looks happy and one that looks dizzy. Do not trust this toast under any circumstances. This entire series is about a much deeper story happening that we're trying to uncover. So what do we actually know about that story? Well, it's fragmented at best, but for now I think the best way to go about this is to tell the true story of Sam and Rebecca going on behind the scenes, taking in all the information from the first and second game. This story starts all the way back when Sam Colton adopted his daughter, Rebecca. Sam was well known in the community for doing story times at the library and generally being a great guy. guy. Eventually, for this love of storytelling, he starts his very own TV show on local broadcast, Amanda the Adventurer, starring his daughter Rebecca as Amanda. It was a hit and the whole town loved it, but before long, Hamlin Entertainment approached them with the opportunity to turn Amanda the Adventurer into a cartoon, to which they agreed. Hamlin then had Sam and Rebecca signed different contracts in different rooms. Now, it's notable here that this isn't legal. Rebecca is a minor, so signing any contract without a legal of age representative is null and void on signing. And Sam's contract literally allows for Hamlin to keep him captive in their building against his will. Hey, quick pointer. Contracts don't make crimes legal. So obviously neither of these contracts are legally binding, but that does make sense for Hamlin. As we learned from some investigators who were looking into Hamlin, the show they produced, and Rebecca, Hamlin seems to be practicing a religion that's been tied to a cult that hasn't been practiced publicly since apparently the Middle Ages. So either they're connected to this cult or trying to recreate it. Throughout the show, there are several sigils of demonic entities hidden in the background, and trickster deities from most major worldwide religions are mentioned throughout the show. Not to mention the cartoon is filled with horrible morals and dangerous instructions. Pair this up with the fact that when kids watch the show, they seem fully engrossed and you can't even get their attention away from it, and the kids that watch it enough end up disappearing. As we watch tapes of this show, it seems pretty clear that Rebecca has literally been turned into Amanda in some way. She's barely conscious of a life before the show she's in, but she is conscious and has memory of this life, to the fact of remembering our name and that we made a pie together in the previous game. She also seems to be directly connected to these tapes in some way. At certain times throughout the game, you cannot pause the tape, and when you try to, text appears in the top left corner. There's a couple different options, but I think the most notable is I refuse. Amanda not letting us pause the tape. There are also these two monsters, one that resembles Amanda and one that resembles Wooly, loosely anyway. But like I said, that's all we really know for sure as far as like confirmed information goes. But there is a lot more to this story just under the surface once we start to speculate. Starting with, I think, the most pertinent question: where is Rebecca? The group investigating the show notes that the show has been going on for 15 years, and it seems as though Rebecca hasn't been in the public eye for the same amount of time. Amanda also gives us a lot of insight into how her life is. The fact that she feels like she's rotting, but it feels far away, and that she feels hollow. Furthermore, throughout the game, anytime you mention the butcher or the meat man, a term that's used interchangeably, to Amanda, she gets terrified and angry that you would bring him up. At some point in both games, we meet this butcher. In the first game, he's literally just a cartoon butcher that doesn't do much. But in the second game, we get a close-up of his face and he's given eyes and a mouth. And it seems as though he's giving us instructions to be calm at the beginning of a procedure. Things like close your eyes, count backwards from 10, you'll feel a pinch, and the like. It's also notable that the first tape in the second game begins with the point of view of the lights above an operating table, as if you were laying down in it. Not to mention, the third secret tape we can find shows Rebecca strapped to an operating table with her head in some strange device and her brainwaves being measured. Another thing we need to keep in mind is that Hamlin is involved in some sort of demonic activity. Combine that with the fact that Amanda has some dominion over the monster that resembles her. She doesn't seem to be able to control it, but it does act for her in collecting the treasure, and she can beg it to stop trying to kill us during the storytime tape. Putting all this together, my thinking is that to put Rebecca into the cartoon, Hamlin had the butcher, or their surgeon, remove her brain from her body and keep it alive. There's a chance that it was put into some sort of machine, or very technically possibly pieces of it were put in the tapes themselves, as crazy as that sounds. But I think it's more likely that somewhere in Hamlin's facility, her brain is being kept, preserved, and monitored. And that brain is what's controlling the Amanda character within the cartoon. But now that her brain has been separated, her body is without a consciousness. And to me, that sounds like a perfect vessel for demonic possession. Could this be what Hamlin's ultimately trying to do? Lure children for experimentation by using the cartoon, and once their brains have been removed from their bodies, have a demon possess that body. That's why the demon looks a little bit like Amanda, and why Amanda's able to convince the demon to spare someone. It's her body she's begging to stop. I think with the context we're given, this is pretty logical, and the same logic could be applied with Wooly, since we have a Wooly character and now a demon monster that looks like Wooly. But this leads us to our next major question: who is Wooly? We know that Rebecca has been turned into Amanda, but we have no idea on the true identity of Wooly. It is notable that Wooly tends to try to keep the episodes on track and with a consistent message, and is also worried about doing things without supervision. After the first game, a lot of people, myself included, started to think that Wooly might be Sam, Rebecca's father. But after playing the second game, I'm actually thinking something different now. Throughout this game, Amanda very clearly hates Wooly, doesn't want anything to do with him, laughs about the fact that he's gone, and during the last tape mentions that she used to trust him. During the treasure tape on an off-beaten path, you can find clothes that resemble what Sam was wearing in one of his interviews, and when they're both shocked, Wooly is the one to suggest to bury it away and forget about it. But something I think really telling happens that leads me to this theory more than anything, and that happens in the broken tape about fixing things. In it, the possum shows up again and attacks Wooly, trying to take his eye out. No matter what you do, save him or let him get it replaced with a googly eye, Wooly takes a moment and does this.
I can't handle this anymore.
This body language and wording to me feels very specific, almost as if he knows that they are inside the cartoon and implying that someone should be able to take him back out. Almost as if he's a diver deep in the ocean calling back to the submarine to pull him up, which to me suggests he doesn't even know who he's talking to. He's talking to Riley, the player character, but it sounds like he's talking to someone who would be able to control who's put into the cartoon. I think he thinks he's still at Hamlin. Pair this with the secret tape in the files of the first game with Wooly just waiting around for something to happen, and the damning fact that only some of the tapes of the second game have the Hamlin logo. Which tapes? The very same ones that Wooly is a part of. I think Wooly is an employee at Hamlin who was supposed to keep Amanda in check and study her, but after a while they left him there to rot, just like Rebecca. He doesn't know that. In his perspective, the experiment is still ongoing and he's just taking a longer time. And maybe in the third game, he'll be how we get dirt on Hamlin and how to defeat them, because we'll convince him that they've left him behind. But for now, he thinks this is all part of the plan. Now, to be fair, this game does present another possibility. Like I mentioned, there were people investigating Hamlin and the TV show itself. We get to see their meetings in one of the tapes, and in the last tape, they seem to be having a heated argument about what to do next. This is because one of their members has disappeared, and the suggestion to dive in and help is made. Could this mean that one of them entered the cartoon and became Wooly? Now, that's possible, but I think it's much less likely. For one, we have no idea how they would have entered the cartoon without Hamlin's help, and why would Hamlin help them with that? And two, and almost more importantly, when we say the name Rebecca throughout the game, Amanda does recognize it, but we can say all four of the names of the people we know from this group at Wooly several times, and not once does he recognize them. I think it's because we haven't learned Wooly's real name yet, and we might in the next game. Finally, and frankly this is one of the easier theories, who is this little freak possum? I love him, I think he's funny, he's a freak and a weirdo. But the question begs, who is he? If Amanda and Wooly are real people, what about the possum? Well, frankly, I think the game is pretty direct in the implication of who this possum is. After all, we know that Joanne's brother Jordan disappeared while watching the show, and we know that when Joanne's voice is played in front of the TV while the possum is there, the possum recognizes it, rushes to break through the screen, and tries to say the name Joanne. Kate died in a car accident, so to me, this possum's pretty much gotta be Jordan in some way. Now, the question is, did Hamlin physically force him into the cartoon? Or does this cartoon like absorb people? That's not clear and we're not sure. But regardless, Jordan in some way became this possum, I think. So where are we getting some of this information from the second game? Specifically, what secrets have we not touched on or have I mentioned but not mentioned the location of? Well, I think a great place to start are the secret tapes needed for the main ending. And frankly, the first one I was able to get and the most impactful to me was the orange tape. In it, we get several meetings of Kate and her friends, Caroline, David, and Peter, who are looking into this show to find out what's actually going on. They mention a lot of the things that we already know, but give us additional context. That yes, there's demon names in this process, but specifically Specifically, Belial, Mara, and Iblis are things that they found, and there are sigils hidden in almost every episode. We also get some time frames here. The fact that the show was created 15 years ago at the point of recording these tapes. Peter also suggests that Hamlin, the production company, might be traceable to a cult that goes all the way back to the Middle Ages. We also find out that as they were looking into it, one of them disappeared, David, and they start talking about how they'll have to tread carefully from here on out. The teal tape shows us what happened to Sam. We know from the first game that he disappeared, but the second game gives us more context as to what happened. He was essentially kidnapped by Hamlin and forced to, by recording, reassure Rebecca that she can trust the company, all doing so under a contract he signed. Realistically, in terms of dialogue, the green tape doesn't have anything super useful. However, what it shows is what's important, as somebody snuck into the Hamlin facility and recorded Amanda on the operation table with some weird device around her head, and overhears a conversation about monitoring her brainwaves, but the recorder is chased off before anything more gets discovered. Finally, the red tape is probably the earliest one in this entire franchise, because it shows us Sam Colton doing a story time at the library. Now, the local TV show already exists as Kate advertises it, but after the story time in the background of the video, we see a man in a suit approach Sam about a wonderful opportunity, which seems to be the first point of contact between Hamlin Entertainment and Sam Colton, and by proxy, Rebecca. But honestly, a majority of the secrets in this game lie in the fill-in questions throughout the tapes, where Amanda or Wooly will ask you a question directly and you can type in an answer. Now, this is one of those moments I need to remind you that I will not have every secret in this game in this video, because frankly, I don't think we'll have every secret in this game for a very long time. There's a lot of these fill-in questions, and the options are almost limitless since you can just type stuff in. But I've played for 2 streams worth and a bunch offline. I think I'm at 15 hours total on this game. So far, here's all the secrets that I've found that I've cataloged while playing.
If you could visit anyone in the world, who would you go see? No! Why are you being so mean to me? Wait, that's... Do you really think you could do that? I wish I could still visit her. Yeah, if you could find him. What are you afraid of? We shouldn't talk about them. Me? You really think I'm scary? Now I'll never get to sleep. Why would you bring him up? Oh yeah, he's really scary. What is your favorite thing to eat for breakfast? Sorry, but we're all out of that. Aw, is that because we made one together before? What do you do when you're feeling bad? I wish I could. I feel like there's nothing left in me. Nope, that didn't help at all. Great suggestion.
What's your favorite kind of story? Those kind of stories are too scary for me. Wow. I wish I hadn't asked. I like those kind of stories, too. Honk, honk.
Who is someone you trust? Yeah, he was so trusting too, and that can be a mistake. I trusted her too. I wish I could still talk to her. Go away! Really? You know, I think I actually believe you. That's a terrible thing to say to me!
And that's Amanda the Adventurer 2. There's definitely a lot more in this game that I can't wait to find or wait to see other people find. And again, even if you've watched this entire video, as long as you don't care about story spoilers, there's such a good reason for you to go and still play this game fully. There's a whole bunch of puzzles I did not talk about on purpose to not spoil the gameplay of it, and there's plenty of secrets still yet to find, and it's genuinely a really good game. And also, you should go and play the first one if you haven't played that either. In the meantime, don't forget that the plushies are still live right now. Go and get one. They're adorable, and they have two sides. Who doesn't love this man's? Last week on the second channel, I covered the leaked origin story for the Pokemon universe and the negative repercussions that came from the leak, and you can go and check out that video right here. If you want your fan art featured on the channel, make sure to share it with hashtag #ToastArt. Huge thank you to the best channel members, the Dough Risers, and until next time, as always, stay toasty, slices.